Well, hello there, and welcome back to the third workshop of this Marketing Now book launch mega live stream. We've got some wonderful guests, as we've had in the previous sessions. And who do we have today? Well, we've got Aaron Levy, Amy Bishop, Lexi Mills, and Joe Martinez. So it's great to have them all on here. We're going to be diving into promotional success. Now, promotional success is actually the third part of the book, the last four chapters of the book, chapters 9 to 12, and looking to the four websites that we've had in the previous sessions, but from a promotional perspective. So how do these websites, how do these businesses do a better job of promoting what they're currently doing? So let us say hi directly to everyone taking part. And we've got Aaron, Lexi, and Joe live. Now, we're just going to have Amy join us just in a few moments' time. What's happening is we can only have 3 guests as part of the live stream. So Amy will just be joining us in a bit. But let's introduce Aaron properly. So Aaron Levy is passionate about growing businesses and people through the power of search engine marketing. He is the Group Director of SEM at Tinuiti, and you can find him over at tinuiti.com. I did my research there, Aaron. Good to have you here. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Great. Okay. And as mentioned, Amy will be joining us in a bit, so we'll introduce her when she's here. But Lexi is passionate about the future of the internet. Lexi Mills, that is. She is a PR SEO specialist, and you can find her over at leximills.com. Hi, Lexi.
Hi. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming here. And Joe Martinez is a writer, speaker, and director of PPC at Clicks Marketing. Clicks with an X. And you can find him over at joemartinezsem.com. Hi, Joe.
Hey, Dave. Thanks for having me again.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. I'm sure we'll have a great discussion. Feel free to share your thoughts, whatever they are. We don't have to kind of stick to the script here. It doesn't have to be just about the content in the book. It could be some other thoughts that you have in relation to the websites, or even maybe similar other sites or industries out there. What I've tried to do is select websites. People submitted websites to me, and I've tried to select websites that maybe are a little bit different. So reflect B2B, B2C, a local website as well. So different types of businesses. So they're meant to reflect that. So feel free just to give some general advice in relation to the types of businesses that we're talking about here. So let's go my screen in front of me and just show you the different websites that we're talking about here. Maximize my screen, focus in on the site. So we've got 4 different sites. We've got a business called Sky Factory, one called Succulents Box, another hospital, Massachusetts General Hospital, and a digital marketing agency, not particularly happy with their website at the moment and wanting to change that. So let's start in B2B and talking about this website, Sky Factory. So in what we've covered so far, they obviously have a rather large picture of Sky on their website, and the kind of technical workshop covered a bit of what's the content in here, and the call to action in here, and in terms of the content in the second website, we were zeroing in on things like you're not really starting off with why, and testimonials, and examples of businesses that have actually used your products or kind of products in action. So this particular session, we're looking into kind of promotion of this type of business, this type of B2B business. So is there anything in particular about this type of business that leads you to think that it should be promoted in a certain way? So put my video back on there. Lexi, shall we start off with you? I know you market yourself as a kind of an SEO PR, kind of digital PR type person. For a B2B business like this, are there any kind of promotional activities that you would tend to recommend that is more likely to be successful?
So it's interesting because I started off integrating PR, well, SEO with PR, then PR with SEO. But we do a lot of offline integration with online now. So offline activities to create links, SEO, get coverage. And specifically within the B2B industry, you have this opportunity to go to trade press. Now, trade press plan quite far in advance, which means you can get their editorial calendars, you can find out what articles they're planning to write and pitch yourself in, which is kind of a little bit easier than national journalism where it's moving so fast. And I don't have unequivocal evidence of this, but I have enough for me to be fueling my strategies on it for B2B clients, that trade media, although they have low DAs, they do more for DA growth and building rankings, getting links from those, than I can see from some of the national media. So for them, I'd be looking at where are your trade press, what different types of trade press could you go after, and you could probably build quite a good in and outbound relationship with them. And that means you can invite them to your events, they're going to cover your events before and after, it's going to help you get some of the social traffic, which will also help the SEO side, but you're also going to get coverage. And trade media read trade press. So that can be incredibly helpful. The other thing we've seen bizarre impact on is when it comes from radio, because a lot of people forget that you can get a lot of radio. If you go into something like Cision and you search by location, you look at all the radio sites and they don't ever really get asked for a link. So you get radio coverage. Most tradespeople are driving around anyway a lot of the time, and you can get links from the site. So there's quite a lot of local and trade opportunity, both in magazines, online, and on radio that I'd recommend they have a look at, because it's going to stand them in good stead whether they're doing short or long-term campaigns.
Love it. And so in general, are you seeing that a lot of digital marketers aren't even aware of more traditional media opportunities?
I don't know if it's that, but when you're an integrated comm specialist, your clients go all crazy and get super excited when they get a DA 80 or 90, but actually getting 4 or 5 DAs, sometimes 20 up to 56, some of these trade websites, can have more of an impact. So I think it's that we've been trained to go for the big DAs, and now and again we have to look at what we do as almost our formula and reassess it. And that's what I've been doing with one of our B2B clients over the last 2 years. And I've shocked myself. I'm like, oh, actually, you know what? Yeah, we'll get them a couple of nationals, but the trade is making the phones ring. When I go and speak to sales and we've had something in print trade, they're like, yeah, the phone's rung loads. And then when you go and speak to the people who are drafting the contracts, they say the contracts close faster. So you start to look at integrative comms as all the ways in which it shows its benefit, not just how many big DAs did you get. So I think it's a mixture of factors, and we need to know who to ask. If you get print coverage, it's pretty hard to track for smaller businesses because you don't see a rise in type in brand name search, which is normally how I'd look at that sort of thing. But if you go and speak to sales, you'll hear about it.
Now, one thing that this particular business, Sky Factory, has found challenging is they've been quite successful with events, with physical events, with getting people along and actually touching and feeling their product. But they've struggled a little bit more to replicate that success online or with other marketing activities. Do you have any thoughts with regards to how they could possibly replicate the closeness that they managed to achieve by talking to their prospect on a one-to-one basis at events?
Well, I think events are always a great opportunity just to collect all kinds of content. I just think if you've got someone there, film them, get an interview, get some sort of social media activity, make sure that you've got photos, everything you can get, because you don't know when you're going to need it. And that multiple sectors of content means you can push it out everywhere and see which one works the best. But I think we also have to understand that there are certain things you just can't communicate effectively online. You know, we spend a lot of time. I remember when we worked for HTC, they had these front projection speakers for their phone. Front projection speakers is like, you should be able to show it, but it's kind of hard to do. So we made a grammar horn that you could drop the phone into that showed that it had front projection speakers. And I think when you're looking at the quality of these sort of things, you might want to get a little bit playful. It's like, okay, well, what could we do? Could we spray loads of different colored water on it and have people skipping around? Is there a way that we can bring it to life slightly out of the context in which the product normally sits? And I think that can be quite effective. Do you need to add something on to display the one feature? And capturing all those consumer reviews and people's experience of the product, when they first see it. I don't know if you ever saw the making of Narnia. I like Narnia a lot. They didn't show the little girl the set for Narnia until the first time they were shooting it. So when she walked in, her face of surprise is genuine surprise because she's never seen it, and it was a pretty rocking set if you've ever watched the films. And I think they might want to look at an approach like that when they've got people coming into their events. There's no reason it's glass. You can have cameras on both sides. Get people truly looking amazed. And those sort of things will make a big difference.
Wonderful, thanks. A lot of great thoughts there, Lexi. Lexi, I'm just going to kick you out for a second, let Amy in. Please stick around and we'll get you back in. But thanks for sharing those thoughts. Aaron, what about this particular business, Sky Factory? What are your initial thoughts?
So this happens a lot in B2B. They're in this challenge where they're solving a problem that people don't necessarily know they have, or they don't know that Sky Factory could be the right answer, where certainly they're selling LED, LCD skylights. I can't get a clear read as to which one it is. But a lot of people, A, don't know those exist, or B, if you think of their target market of hospitals, dental offices, any place that people are uncomfortable and laying on their backs, they've never thought to look for that. So an architect, it could be a designer, it could be a property manager. I'm sure that the first touch for a business like that is all over the place. So it's one of those areas where you have to look not only to solve the problem, but also to establish it. So when you're going through their site, and I was reading a bunch of it, and there were a lot of words that I didn't know what they meant, which is probably good because I didn't go to medical school. But the challenge is that the people who are doing the research might not know what those words mean either. It may be, an assistant. It might be an admin. It might be an office manager who's saying, wow, people look really anxious when they're in the waiting room. What can we do to make that better? So if I'm running a search campaign, I just did some light Googling, and obviously they're showing for the really obvious things, LED skylights, LCD skylights. And in that sense, their competitive set is a little bit weird because they're fighting against anybody who builds a skylight, anybody who installs a skylight, and also anybody who has these goofy little LED mood lights that you can put in the ceiling. So their competitors aren't their competitors.
Yeah.
Where a business like this can really win, which is an impossible problem to solve from an attribution perspective, but Lexi shared this a little bit as well. Just because it doesn't show in Google Analytics doesn't mean it doesn't happen. But doing things to become an education marketer, to establish that, waiting rooms or, longer medical procedures or getting an MRI or whatever doesn't need to be a long, tenuous experiment. So I would go after things like reducing patient anxiety, improving waiting rooms, things like that, writing pieces of content or advertising on it, or I'll point to you, Joe, and set you up already to talk about your favorite little moving internet TVs. But some of these things where it'll be a much more of a sequential process. There will not be a binary, oh, someone searched for patient anxiety and then we sold a bunch of skylights. That won't happen. It'll be much more progressive, but most B2B marketers know that the sales process is not binary. It's not a clear path. There are dozens to hundreds of stakeholders, all of whom want to have their say. And the answer usually comes down to procurement, and procurement says no because they're no fun. But it usually winds up being there's a lot of stakeholders. So the process is very nonlinear. It's very, it's not straightforward at all. So the more people that you can educate and the more people that you can influence throughout the sales process make the yes much more likely.
So how do you go about attempting to target as precisely as possible anyone who sees your content?
I don't know. I don't think it's necessarily about being precise. I mean, a lot of the chapters talk about the future of, the future of marketing. We've all heard about AI. We've all heard about personalization. We've all heard about automation. Getting precise doesn't have to be perfect. it's always about showing people new information. So if we get someone a piece of information, or if we give them something that's a little bit customized but not necessarily personalized in terms of content, that's great. Letting them know that we saw you before, here's something new for you to look at, keep going. The challenge when people try to get too precise or too personalized is, think of how many bad search queries you've seen from Broadmatch. I remember the old eBay adage of buying used babies or things like that, just from things going wrong. So when you start thinking about being precise or being personalized in this world of AI, think about what happens if it goes wrong. Is it okay if the wrong message gets served to a person, or a message that's not necessarily meant for them? There's one that I've noticed and shared at a few conferences before, but Chase Bank here in the States, they do a couple of really, really subtle things where I'm based here in Philadelphia and all of the backgrounds are locations in Philadelphia. So that's an example of content being really well personalized, but at the same time, they're pretty pictures of a nice landscape. So if I don't live in Philadelphia, or if my IP is wrong, or if I'm in the wrong state, they're still pretty pictures. It's still okay. But when we try to get too individualized and try to get too right, it can often bite us.
Great, thanks, Darren. Joe, what are your thoughts on this particular business, Sky Factory?
Initially, this is a product where it needs to be seen, and I think Lexi has kind of referenced that, before. So this is not something where I could understand exactly what it is from a text ad. If I don't know what they do, this is not something where I want to sit down and read paragraphs and paragraphs of blog content on this product. This is a visual product. So that, what could they do to capture that user's attention? I'm kind of really going off of my background from a branding perspective and doing a lot of display in YouTube. Visually, what point do they want to portray? And that needs to showcase within whatever ads or even whatever promotion material that they're using, whether it is print, whether it is digital, whether they are at a trade show. It's visually showing what the product does. Now, from a digital standpoint, then is I'm only looking really at the homepage here. I wouldn't feel comfortable sending them to this page because it doesn't really showcase what they do if we're assuming that our targeting that we have is on point. We know we're hitting the right audience. So it's that portrayal of what message you want to initially portray to that user, and then are you relaying that message on the page so the user can click like, oh, I am on the right page, instead of just a blue sky. Because for me, honestly, again, I'm a paid guy, I'm not an SEO guy. I don't look at title tags ever unless I'm pretty much forced to. I had no idea initially that this was LED lighting. I actually thought it was really legit sunroofs. So it's what do you want to do so you're not lying to the user, and actually pretty much clarifying. If it's okay if you're turning people away if they don't want your product, fine. I don't want them clicking on my ad if they're not eventually going to buy.
Well, I mean, it's a couple of different products. It's kind of infinity sky ceilings, they call them. So it's essentially really luxurious glass that can also be turned into digital cinemas, I believe, as well. So they're quite complex products, and I think they're finding it quite difficult to articulate the quality of them and what they can do online. Do you think there comes a point where you can't actually do as good a job online as you can do at a trade show face to face, or are they not using the website to its fullest ability to be able to do that?
One of the things that we like to do with trade show marketing is that you can utilize a lot of components of building your trade show audience to then target people in other ways. Not only from just promoting your trade show with ads, again, coming from my background with just paid media, is besides going after trade show names and keywords to just boost that awareness and try to drive traffic to your booth, going beyond just customer lists, now that it's getting harder to utilize, but even creating custom audiences based off of people who are interested in those trade shows and those industries, that gives you an opportunity to do more top of funnel, even mid funnel type marketing to those industries by utilizing all the different types of terms, phrases, websites, URLs, interest from those additional trade shows. So you can utilize some of that non-digital traditional type marketing, but then boost your awareness campaigns with those trade shows.
Wow. There's a lot of potential there, and just my mind's going a little bit there, and kind of thinking of the possibilities if I was the marketer in the business. I know that Amy's been trying to connect. Amy, if you're watching us and you're struggling to connect, if you can perhaps leave and come back and try and connect again. Hopefully we can get you on. If you're still struggling in about 5 minutes or so, then we'll get Lexi back in and again and involved in the conversation. Shall we move on to the next website? And there's a website called Succulents Box. I'll show the website on my screen there as well. And they're a very niche kind of garden plants company, and they seem to be doing a lot of things really well. They've got a good presence in social media. They've got a lot of content on their website. They're very targeted. They've got a clear call to action in terms of product. So they seem to be doing a lot of things that are quite effective. Amy, hi.
Hi.
Thanks. Glad we could get you on there. There must have been just a bit of a glitch with you trying to connect the first time, but it's great to have you here.
Thanks. Great to be here.
So we moved on to the second website here. Do you have any particular desire to comment on the first one, Sky Factory?
I did have just a few things on Sky Factory. So kind of echoing what others had said, I think that starting top of funnel with more kind of general informational content could be really helpful. And there are a ton of good options for top of funnel campaigns, even things like Quora, where people are asking questions and you can get in front of those people that may not know that your product exists, but they're trying to solve for a specific problem that you can help them solve for. But then also, especially in the healthcare B2B space, there are some niche sites that you can become involved with for content syndication, where you create the content, you promote it on their site, and then you only pay for the leads that come through that meet your specifications. So it's kind of a nice way of making sure that you're only spending money on people that are truly qualified, but also making sure that you're getting your content in front of a really broad audience. But I also think that potentially part of their disconnect is that if they're doing really well at trade shows, it's because they have a really quality product. And when people are in person, they can see that and they can see how the product works. But when you go to the website, it doesn't really lend itself to that same quality. So I think just from a brand perspective, there are some things that they could do visually and content-wise to better message and package themselves as a luxury brand and a quality brand. And I'd also like to just see more videos, kind of demos, and being able to see that, because a lot of what you had explained, I don't think comes out very well in the website. So if I had landed there, I could see where the experience online would be very different from the experience that people are having in the trade show. And even just the top part of the website kind of missing that header graphic or any type of content, that alone typically to me would mean this isn't a very established business. So even just doing some of that kind of initial cleanup that would be, I think, really low-hanging fruit could help lend itself to much more credibility and allow them more ways to display their products in a way that people could better interact and understand the value of those products.
Absolutely. I mean, I think just looking at the homepage in this blue sky, they do have some other content on their website, and they do appear to be reasonably successful with their trade shows. But I think this landing page, they're trying to be cleverer or too clever here, because the majority of people landing in this just aren't going to see any answer with regards to what the website is about, what the business is about. I think you were talking about the fact that customers are actually saying good, positive things about the product at trade shows, and it would be lovely to incorporate some of that on the website as well. And if they could record customers saying positive things, or actually just simply write down the reasons why customers who interact with them at trade shows like their product, and then incorporate some of those opinions and whys on the homepage, I'm sure that'll be very positive for them. But let's move on to this website, Succulents Box. So we had a little overview of what this one was about, and it certainly seemed to be doing a lot of things right. Aaron, what jumps out at you as a real promotional opportunity for this type of business?
Well, and I'm weirdly plant person, which I don't think a lot of people will know from my external facing brand. So there's a couple things that I see from a design perspective, a user perspective, and frankly from a promotional perspective. I don't get a good sense of why I would buy from them. I get a good sense that succulents are beautiful and that they are pretty and that they have names that nobody knows how to pronounce. But I will also say, and again, I'm a little bit of an outcast because those are a little expensive. That's a little pricey. Succulents in their absolute tip-top form, just a cutting or whatever, $5, $7. Maybe if you go to Etsy and get really crazy ones, they go a little bit more. But it's definitely a premium price for what, to a degree, is a commodity product. So they'll certainly very easily get the subscription box type people that buy, or the person who's like, oh, I want a fun new present every month, because that's what their site is built like. And what I really love about it from that perspective is that it's familiar. It feels like a meal kit site. It feels like a Freshly or something like that. It feels like a BarkBox or a Candlebox or whatever it may be. The site feels very familiar, which, when I'm thinking from a promotional perspective, I don't want to put someone somewhere that surprises them. So what they do really, really well is their marketing sets the expectation. Like, this is a place where you get monthly succulents delivered. Here's a bunch to choose from. And then they deliver on that. What is a bit confusing on the site is they're short on inventory for a whole bunch of stuff. And if I'm a marketer coming, or if I'm a consumer coming from a marketing message, coming from promotional, and I go to a site that's half empty, I'm confused. So inventory issues are always tough to control. Reading into their mind, I suspect they have a bunch of category pages with types of succulents and things like that. But they have like one that's available and 5 that are sold out. I suspect they didn't just want to have one product on there with nothing else showing, but it's something to consider. Because me as a consumer, like, okay, if you offer a couple hundred different varieties, but you're currently stocking 40, is your subscription box just giving me the leftovers? Is it the dead ones, or is it the cuttings? What's going on there? So things like that can be a little bit confusing if you look under a shiny shell, which they have. And as I say, they do have a lovely site that's very familiar and easy to navigate. But if you look under it and some of the things start to make a little bit less sense, I'm not going to pay a premium price for a product that I can get somewhere else with a little bit more work.
So what should they be doing differently? Do you think they need to be lowering the prices, or can they position their product to be perceived as being worth that additional amount of money?
I think they definitely could position it as being worth it, but I think in that case they have to present the value of them as a company a little bit more than the plants. Obviously, the company is about the plants, and the plants are beautiful. But lifestyle imagery, I think what would do this business really, really well is having user-generated content, some customer images. Because while these plants are beautiful, they're the best possible version. I have a handful of succulents behind my desk, and they do not look like that. They grow weird directions, and they get lost, and sometimes parts of them fall off. But some user-generated content that could make people feel a little bit more familiar, a little bit more Pinteresty, if you will, versus just seeing a pretty plant on a white background. I can't picture that in my house. I don't have an all-white house. So taking some of that material, maybe a photo contest, maybe an opportunity for people to share reviews, an opportunity for people to share pictures, things like that, to get some more customer engagement, and show why, okay, you get fully grown beautiful plants and show them off, versus if you buy it from Etsy, you get a stem and you have to grow from the stem. So that works. But so explaining to people why they're paying more and what they're getting for it would be really valuable, versus just saying, here's the price, here's some plants, go.
That's some great insight from someone that knows a great deal about succulents by the sound of it. So thanks for that.
Everyone should buy a lithops. They're awesome. They look like they're dead. They look like tree stumps, but they're not. They're living rocks.
I mean, they do appear to be doing quite well on their Instagram and their Pinterest on the face of it. But as you say, when you look at their Instagram, none of the photos are user generated. They all appear to be lovely photos that have been taken by a professional photographer, probably in house. And
Yep.
yeah, but Pinterest, they've got a couple of photos of someone's hand in the plant and a couple of videos, but by and large, yeah, professional photos.
Right. When you're thinking about marketing on social, it's very obvious and very easy to tell when it's an ad. And usually, not everybody, obviously, as people are getting more conditioned to it, but if you're in your personal time and you're browsing your personal mindset and then you're like, boom, professional ad in between like cute baby photos and funny dogs and whatever, you're distracted, you're turned off, you're not going to watch it. Whereas if it's something that fits in, you're like scrolling. Oh, that's really nice. Who did that? Oh, it's a company. I want that. When it feels more natural like that and people can position themselves or picture themselves doing it themselves, they'll have a lot more success.
So how do they go about, to a certain degree, changing that brand personality? Because at the moment, it's fairly professional. Do they introduce it bit by bit, or do they try and do a complete revamp of the website?
No, I don't think there's a need to revamp the website. As I say, the site itself feels familiar. I know how to get around it. I know what I'm looking at. I think most people will. But this could be something, again, where a photo submission contest or something like that for your worth of succulents is a really cheap way to do it. Or honestly, just having some people around the office or even employees say, hey, take some of our plants home and take some pictures with your phone, because that's what's native to these brands. There's really, really low rent ways to sort of dip their toes in it. The other thing that may be interesting is their, if you go to their care section, that part is overwhelming. And if I'm a first-time buyer getting my first box and I go to this care section and I see 18 boxes that I don't know what they are, I'm going to cancel my subscription because I don't know how to take care of one, much less a dozen of them. But if I have a nice, clean idiot's guide of a really short, punchy, here's what you do, give it some light, keep its temperature consistent, give it a couple drops of water every couple of weeks, that's all you have to do, I feel a lot better. Whereas now it makes it look harder than it needs to be.
Great. Love it. A lot of great advice there. Aaron, I'm just going to take you off for a moment and get Lexi back on here, but I appreciate that. Thanks. Joe, what would you like to add about Succulents Box?
Yeah, kind of going off of Aaron said a lot of stuff that I had in my head too. The visuals are fantastic, and there's ways that you can capitalize on that. Like David, you said too, their social media accounts, they do get a lot of views and a lot of attention. So from a visual standpoint, there's some great assets that we would be able to use, I think, from an advertising standpoint to promote it. Just looking at what they do, just doing simple searches on, there's a lot of niche fan bases for these succulent type ones. You can find specific topics dedicated just to succulents. They're on Quora. There are specific spaces on Quora where people are actively discussing it, and this is like a passion product for them. So there's definitely that audience that you can easily get in front of. I'm already finding websites dedicated to these plants where you can get ads on there and try to really build your brand. And then it goes all down to just testing the creative. I was looking at their YouTube account, and they have great videos, but none of those videos are ones that I would recommend to use as advertisements, because they're all pretty specific for the most part of how to, like properly unbox, what to do with your succulent after you unbox it. That's not really an ad that you want to show. That's more of answering a question that somebody's already looking for. So I would just look at kind of what Aaron said, what value, we can already find great targeting options for people who are really, really passionate about this product. That's pretty easy. We've already found a ton of those. But then what message do you want to put across? Aaron's the plant guy. I'm not. So if they are more expensive, then what other value do you bring to the table that's going to make someone want to potentially click on an ad to go to your website and buy something? So that'd be something I would differentiate out. To go back to the commonality of just using plain pictures and having people do it, the photo contest is something that what Aaron mentioned, which is fantastic. And I've worked with brands that have done that before. People want their 15 minutes of fame. It's, if they're really passionate about it and they want to be in your ads, and it's amazing how people would be more than willing to just sign away the rights to this. Yeah, you can use my images, you can use my video clips, and just compile a cool montage video of a bunch of your fans, and then utilize that as a YouTube video where people can see other people like them using your product, doing an unboxing of the succulent or anything, and if they make it seem fun and cool and people can see themselves doing it, that's where you're going to get the engagement, and that's where you're going to get the more brand awareness and people falling in love with that brand and have building an affinity that makes you feel like you're the only option to get a succulent box subscription. Oh, I'm sorry, David. I don't know if it was just me. I couldn't hear.
Okay, sorry, it was me. I didn't
Okay,
unmute myself, so I thought I'd try and give you all a fright. Amy, what are your thoughts on what's been shared so far? Did you agree with everything? And is there anything different that you would add?
Yeah, I agree with what's been said so far, but I would also add that I am not a plant person, but succulents have a really good reputation for being easy to take care of. And being that I'm not a plant person, I honestly, coming here, wouldn't necessarily have known that the prices were high. So I may be somebody that might be more likely to buy. It's a really good looking site, really good looking pictures. But when I go to the shop drop down, it's really overwhelming because I have no idea where to start. So I would love if they had a tool or a quiz that helped you identify which ones would be best for you. They do have different categories that you can shop under, like indoor, outdoor, bright light, shade, things like that. But then that doesn't take into account color and look and style and things like that. So you would have to potentially navigate across multiple different categories or go in by specific plant types, and I would have no idea where to begin with that. So it would potentially take a lot of work for me to try to identify which ones would be best for me. And then also, like Aaron said, when I went to the care drop down, succulents have a good reputation for being fairly easy to take care of. But then I go to the care drop down and it's talking about propagation, and that seems really overwhelming. So I'd love to just see a beginner's guide, just getting started, quick and easy overview of taking care of your succulents. But then the other thing that I would add just to the things that Joe was mentioning is that the great thing about subscriptions is you have a really nice audience to build lookalikes off of. And then platforms like, for instance, Facebook has a specific target for people that are interested in succulents. So there are a ton of options of finding more people in their target market once they get their messaging and their navigation kind of honed in to make sure that they're converting those folks.
Love it. Lots of great tips there. I love the thought about building a lookalike audience as well. If they've got that that reasonable number of subscribers, then you can obviously start to do that. What would you say is the minimum number that they would require in order to actually build a reasonable audience?
That's a good question. So ideally, I'd like to have over 1,000 folks to build a good lookalike audience. But even if you could start with some lookalikes of folks that have purchased, if you don't have that many subscribers, or you could potentially go a little bit higher funnel if you wanted to. But I do find that having lookalikes of the actual subscribers tends to perform much better, or lookalikes of the high value purchasers, even if they just are one-time purchasers. If they make a big purchase, that's a good place to start as well. So I would build out a couple different lists and then start with those.
Love it. Thanks, Amy. And Lexi, what are your thoughts on Succulents Box?
So it's funny, just hearing everyone talk, it gave me a bunch of ideas. It's always lovely to get people from different places around. But I got to thinking about different user case studies, because we do this a lot. We have clients in lots of different areas that have a product, maybe like a shower, that you don't buy very often. So how do you get someone to pick one shower over another? And I thought, well, what's interesting with this is I was like, well, what about a campaign, just an idea, what a difference a plant makes. And it's not about you having the plants just for you. It's what do you do with them? Who do you choose to give them to? What are their reactions? So instead of maybe a straight up photo competition, it's a miniature video competition and photo, but it's about the gesture and how you use your succulents to bring joy and make people happy. Because one of the biggest trends we have at the moment is this cleansing of stuff, this anti-consumerism. And especially coming up to Christmas, a lot of people are talking about what is and isn't a good gift. And so I think they could probably jump onto that. But I really felt Amy's point of view. I can't keep a cactus alive, like for love nor money. Like if I had a plastic one, it would also die. But then I remembered that we had this client that had an augmented reality app. You'd print out something and you put it down, you hold your phone over it and you lift your phone up and it pops up. so you can see where it is. Well, it's no more coding to have it pop up and say, hey, this is a light room, so it can pop up the exact succulent that suits that area, and then you can click to watch a little video of how to not kill me fast. But then my final thought was product PR. So I used to grow a lot of plants when I was a kid and didn't travel as much. And I was always trying to make them glow in the dark and doing different genetic stuff. And it would be quite fun how to make a cosmic succulent. And you get some kind of Bill Nye science guy dude, showing you what you have to water them with, because there is stuff that you can water plants with to change their colors that doesn't hurt them. And then you get another user case study, which is succulents as for kids. I don't know about you, but I had to keep my Tamagotchi alive for quite a while before I was allowed a hamster, right? If you're looking at the different user case studies, why would you have this? Well, if you're a parent and you want to get your child interested in botany, you want to teach your child responsibility, this is a really nice entry point, which suddenly means you're now in the mom and baby and the family and educational sections of publications, which is a much greater place to build a market, because you're not fighting against every other subscription service in the top 10 subscriptions list. So I think that was mainly what came to mind. If they told me I could make a neon one, I'd be super there. If you can make a glittery one, all in. But I think I'm always thinking about how do you make someone realize how it's relevant for them, and building out these case studies can be fun. And if you gamify that, I really love the idea of a video, especially coming up to Christmas, of everyone saying, how are you spreading care? Because I used to bake a lot. In fact, way more than I could ever eat. And that's how I met all my neighbors. They thought I was being nice. I actually just had to get rid of all the baking. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to get out my house. And I think those sort of videos would have a lot of emotion to them. And people do have emotion towards plants. They change the way a room feels. And I think that's important to communicate, whether it's an image or video, and getting the audience to do it seems like the perfect solution for everyone involved.
Love that. I think Amy shared as well. If you don't know too much about succulents or any types of plants, and you visit a website like this, you're probably going to get overwhelmed. You don't know necessarily where to start. And if you could complete an interactive survey, how to choose a succulent to suit your personality or to suit the way that you live, that would be a lovely way to get people involved and not feel that overwhelm. So you had so many great ideas there, Lexi. We could almost focus in on this particular business, couldn't we? But shall we move on to the next one? And that is, it's a hospital. It's a children's hospital called Massachusetts General Hospital. One of the challenges that they've had is the hospital belongs on the same domain name as a general adult hospital, so they've found it challenging to be discovered. I think occasionally people haven't been able to find them effectively enough. So obviously, from a website design perspective, things can be improved significantly. From maybe a crawlability or usability perspective, things can be improved as well. But I'm sure that many other things can be done as well to help to promote this type of business in the right places. So Joe, shall we start off with you in this one, and then we'll kick you out and get Aaron back in?
Sure. Yeah, definitely. It's that I've actually worked at a few agencies before that have promoted hospitals in any sort of way. So I know some of the stuff, depending on what you're promoting, at least from an advertising perspective and an audience perspective, is going to be limited. Once you start to get really personal with any sort of conditions or medical procedures or anything, there's a lot of stuff that you can't do in this industry in terms of marketing it from an advertising perspective. Just if someone's going through a hard time, they don't want to see reminders of that hard time following them around. So that is something that makes complete sense. But where we do see success, especially in the children's one, is capitalizing on that emotion. And these are where some of the user stories that we worked with previous agencies have done really, really well. Just from my personal experience, is super, super minor. But my son just had a procedure at a hospital on Friday. And even for how something as minor as it was, it's still nerve-wracking for the parent. So it's coming up with those comfort stories of your kid is in the best care. And that is the one that you can really, really play on. And it doesn't have to be any false. I know I said play on it. It sounds almost like deceptive, but that is exactly why some of the passionate people who work at these children's hospitals do it. It's that comfort and care. And that's the emotional aspects of marketing that really needs to play into the fact of what we could do to get that emotional connection that's going to want to make people go to the Massachusetts hospital instead. I have the site pulled up on my end as well. I don't see it easy to find it. I removed the children from the domain, so I'm at massgeneral.org. There is nothing from that aspect that I could really see that makes it easy for me to find that page. So there needs to be some sort of change, if that is a push from the hospital as itself, to get some way that I can find it easily. And I still can't even just. Before even this discussion, David, when you brought up the URL, it's like I still can't find out how to get to the children's page at all. So there has to be a main navigation update. Once I do get to the children's page, then it's easier for me to find what I'm looking for. I see kids smiling. I see smiling families. So the main image that they're trying to portray from the children's page is great, but from the main hospital page, I honestly couldn't find any way of how to even get to the main children's page. And that's a huge issue if that's a push for that hospital specifically.
Absolutely. A lot of great thoughts there. I love your thoughts initially on creating content that is emotional, but it's right for the right target market. Obviously, you're aiming at the parents of children. You're reassuring them. You're not wanting to publish content that's going to be concerning in any way at all. You've got to be hitting people at the right moment at the right time, and that'll certainly be doing that. Amy, do you have any thoughts on this particular business?
Yeah, so similar to what Joe had just mentioned, when you're on the just kind of Mass General page, there's no kind of sign of children's programs. So even if there was something under the drop down of patients and visitors that would take you to the children's specific content, I think that would help. But then also for me as a parent, I definitely think that everything that Joe said is correct. I think the other piece is that if your kid needs medical attention, you want to know that you're going to the very best possible place. And obviously there are only certain things that they can say. They can't make promises or guarantees or anything like that. But when I'm on the children's page, I don't necessarily see anything that really speaks to me, that really gives me a ton of confidence that this is the right place. And it's just kind of pulling me in. I like that they have this testimonial here kind of towards the top right, but the content on this page is a little bit light. So I'd like to just see more about the types of research that they're doing and the types of cases that they've treated, more stories like the two that they have highlighted here. Kind of happy, positive stories that make you feel really good about taking your child there. I think that there's just more that they could do as far as proof points to make me feel more comfortable about bringing my child there.
Great stuff. And sorry, Joe, I'll just kick you off just now, and we'll get Aaron in. See you in a bit. Thanks. Aaron, invite Aaron in. Yes. And Lexi, what are your thoughts about this hospital?
So I was desperately searching for a photo of something I have in my apartment in London. It's a miniature fairy door, and I actually glue them everywhere. So I have glue in both my apartments in the UK and America, and I wherever I think somewhere needs improving, I glue these miniature little doors. And I was thinking, well, if you want to get people to that website, and I know what it's like navigating big corporates when you can't fix the nav on something. And I was like, well, what if people knew exactly what they were looking for and it was slightly bizarre? And I was like, well, what if you were searching for the fairy hospital in Massachusetts? What if that was your search term? And what if across the hospital, there are all these miniature fairy doors, because little kids will be more likely to find them. You can buy them, they're fairly cheap. And what if you had light and colored heat reactive paint, so that when light shines through the windows, little fairy footprints come up in different parts of the hospital. And it becomes this place where the hospital isn't saying it's always great, but it can be magical. and it's distracting children because a lot of, if you speak to doctors, a lot of what they're trying to do is they sort of play with a toy here and then do the injection and then shove a jelly baby in their mouth, right? Well, what if they're walking along and they're frightened, but suddenly some footprints appear on the ground? What if, somebody is in charge of glitter sprinkling, right? And what if someone comes around every day with little treats and the kids have to go and put them by the doors for the fairies? There are ways of doing this that could really create such beautiful, engaging content, wouldn't be that expensive, would be very newsworthy, and it would just be a lovely section on the site, especially if some of the doors had cameras behind them. So you've got the little child's face coming up to the camera going, because kids love it. And it's not just kids, females that like it. It's often male children as well. I bought a fairy door for one of my friend's little girls, and actually she has a twin brother, and he got really upset he didn't have one. I was like, oh, I've been gender biased. But the other thing I was thinking about is you want to widen that. My sister teaches mentally challenged children of all different age groups, and she developed something called superhero yoga, which we're now working on putting into a video series. And what if you've got all these kids doing superhero yoga once a week in the hospital? Wouldn't parents love that? If you're going to pick between two hospitals, you're going to pick the one with the fairy doors and the superhero yoga. And then people are searching Massachusetts Children's Hospital superhero yoga. Well, your page is going to optimize. It's going to be very hard for it to not optimize for that if you're putting the right details on it. So you're sidestepping the main issue, because I have fought battles to get things on the top of nabs and fixed in the past. And sometimes you just have to go around that.
Lexi, I love bringing people together with completely different perspectives, and that's the kind of idea that is just needs to be brought into a conversation, because it's not a traditional digital marketing thought or technical marketing thought, but it's a wonderful, appropriate thing to bring in for this particular example. And I think that a lot of hospitals bring in, as you mentioned, treats or distractions on a non-planned out basis. I've got a young son. He was taken into accident and emergency. Nothing horrendously serious, but it was almost exactly as you said. We had to distract him and hold him down to get a couple of stitches in his head, and to bring in an experience like that or content like that, it has to be done on a premeditated, planned out basis. And simply having a few children's toys and a few jelly babies are okay, but they're not planned out, and they're not special, and they're not a reason why people would search for that particular hospital. So great thought. Thank you. Aaron, what are your thoughts on this particular hospital?
Sorry, I had 2 mute buttons turned on. You only need one. Lexi, I applaud you for finding joy in marketing a children's hospital, because it's always one of those things that's so challenging. As all have described, no one's excited to go there. No one's happy to be researching it. No one's doing it for a good reason. No one's making a good reason, but no one's excited about it. And I think one of the biggest challenges that I face, which all of the other commentators have noted, is the pages are all stale. They're very matter of fact. They're very we are what we are. They say what they do, and that's it. They say what they do. They list a bunch of technical terms that parents don't, depending on where the child is, they may or may not know what it is. But it doesn't give me a feeling that this is a hospital that's going to do something like what Lexi described, and make sure that my child is happy, and make sure that I don't have a child, but make sure that my hypothetical child is happy and is laughing when they get their first shot, or is smiling when they're going through chemo, because it's going to be a very difficult time in their life, whatever they have to deal with. We spent a lot of time volunteering with the Ronald McDonald House here in the US, who houses children who are going through cancer treatments. And I think that makes them the happiest is when they kind of forget where they are. And when people talk to them like kids, and when people hang out with them like their children, when they get a sense of normalcy. And as a hypothetical parent, I would look for that in the web experience. I would look to say that this is a place that will treat my child as a human, not as a patient. And what I get the sense from a lot of their marketing, a lot of what they're doing, it feels like it was written by a doctor for another doctor, not necessarily by a parent for a parent. So there's a number of like little weird technical marketing things. I'm looking on their site, and there's a lot of, I'm sure they're using call tracking. There's a lot of phone numbers where they have, or a lot of sections where they have 7 or 8 phone numbers. I'm a parent. I have a sick kid. I don't want to think. Just give me a quick front door, and tell me exactly how to talk to someone. But do it in a way that it doesn't feel like it's everywhere else. Do it in a way that feels human. Mute button.
And I only had one of them, but I still didn't turn it off. Yes, great thoughts. Thank you, Aaron. We've got about 10 minutes left or so, so let's move on to the last website, and it's actually a digital marketing agency, and it's a digital marketing agency that know that their website's not great, but they just want to be savaged so that they get as many tips as possible to ensure that any redesign pushes them in the right direction. So this is the website. It's called Flypaper is the brand name. The domain name is Customers Who Stick. And I'll put it big on my screen there. And shall we go to Amy first on this one? If you'd like to reveal your thoughts, Amy.
Yeah, I have a couple of thoughts here. So when I first went to this page, I just didn't feel like the homepage made a strong first impression. Above the fold, there's not really much content, but then there's a hard CTA. So I don't think that there's enough information to drive buy-in before you're pushing for that CTA. Maybe either do a softer CTA or do a little bit more information about the agency before you kind of go to that hard call out. And I also think that just generally the pages lacked a little bit of brand tone. The messaging's a little bit flat. So who are they? What's their brand archetype? How would they define themselves? I really like that they have their mission on their homepage, but I think that their copy needs just a little bit more character. And then I didn't love the contact page. So either if you scroll to the footer or if you go to the contact page, it wants you to pick a location before you can contact them. And I think that that's just generally a little bit overwhelming, and it requires more clicks to get somebody to convert. So cutting out some of that step would help probably with conversion rate, especially just because it's not a good experience. So if I am looking for somebody to help me with my digital marketing, I want to make sure that their website has a good experience so that they're going to always be looking out for my website to make sure that it has a good experience. I think that it's great that they boast so many locations, and it's probably partially that they want to look like a big agency and they want people to know that we do have people near you, but you could have one contact form and then you could have multiple phone numbers off to the side to call the location nearest you, and potentially one toll-free number if you just don't have a business in one of those locations. Because the flip side of that is, if I'm not local, do you not serve me? Which office do I contact? And that can be a little bit confusing. I'm assuming that maybe having all of those different pages might be for SEO purposes, and I'm definitely not an expert in SEO, but if I were going to do that, I would have those pages but not require them as part of the navigation to convert, just have them in effort to try to rank. But if you go to those pages right now, they're really light on content, so I would assume that they're probably not really ranking for non-brand terms anyway. So I would just cut out that whole step. And then I would just say, from kind of a content perspective, I've found that one of the best ways to get clients, and it's not a quick and easy way, but it's just something that you build up over time, is a lot of thought leadership and content marketing. And right now they have a news section. They don't have a blog, but if you go to the news section, it's almost like a blog. I don't know that I would have thought to go there, though, if I were looking for resources and information as a prospective client, I would have went there looking to see their press releases or awards that they've won, things like that. So I think that there's room for them to kind of grow their marketing efforts by just creating more content, and that would also give them some nice top of funnel calls to action to get, start collecting email addresses and start collecting some maybe colder leads that they could warm over time.
Great stuff. Thanks, Amy. So what we'll do is we'll say goodbye to you. We'll get Aaron back on the screen, but before we do, make sure that everyone knows exactly who you are. Obviously, you're a digital marketer, conference speaker, freelance PPCer, and founder of cultivativemarketing.com. Is there anywhere else that you would like to share for people to get hold of you?
That's pretty much the best place, cultivativemarketing.com. And then you can also find me on Twitter at Hoffman8.
Wonderful stuff. Thanks again, Amy.
Thanks, guys. Bye.
Lovely. We will try and see if we can invite Aaron back on. I don't seem to be able to invite Aaron back on. Oh, yeah, Aaron, you're back
Well,
here.
it's because Aaron never left. Aaron's been here the whole time.
That's weird. Okay. Where's is it Joe that's gone? Or,
Yes.
Okay, I'm getting confused. Sorry. There's just a circle of digital marketers coming around, and so some good thoughts there from Amy about this particular website, digital agency Flypaper, and how they can improve things. How about Aaron? What are your thoughts? What would you like to add?
You sure they want to be roasted? Because I'm going to do it.
You go for it. We don't have that long. So just try and do it in 2 minutes if you can.
I mean, look, you could take the logo and the name off of this website, and you would not be able to tell what agency it is. It is identical to every other single agency website. That I hope my marketing team is not listening. Is not that much to say that it's that different from ours either. Ours is a little bit of the same way. But in navigating around their site, it took 4 or 5 clicks to get to a word that I knew. It's sort of, for those of us in the States, you can think of it like a used car versus a pre-owned car. I would never search for a pre-owned car, but a dealership sells them. I search for a used car, but they don't want to use the word used because used is a bad word. I find that with a lot of digital marketing sites, and this one is no exception, where they'll name drop proprietary technology or tools or processes that they built out. I forget which one caught my eye. Let me see if I can find it. But so there we go. Our services, Funnel Booster. I don't know what that is. I've never tried to buy that before. I don't know if I want to buy it. Precision targeting of what? Online presence. Is that a website? I don't really know. Some of these things that are a little too marketing mumbo jumbo-y when what it looks like is their audience is largely SMBs, but it reads to me like a site that was built by advanced marketers for really advanced marketers. It's built for people who are looking for proprietary technology or are looking for big picture things. But if I'm a leather goods store in Texarkana, which is a lovely town, I don't know what those mean. I'm just worried about running my store. So can you get me a website and get people to it and sell stuff? Yes or no? So I think a lot of digital marketing sites, and again, this is one of them, focus too much on sizzle, not enough on steak, too much on what things look like and not enough on substance. There's a big place for both of them, but they both need to be there. And I think right now it's a lot of sizzle. And when you finally get to the steak, I'm a little let down.
I don't think that was too hard. That was very useful, I'm sure, for them. And there is a lot of writing, as you say, from technical marketers, probably for themselves, because they're not really thinking of who the target market is. But it's a lot of things that can be improved.
I mean, for a site like this, it seems silly and rudimentary, but I would just go to your target audience, go to some local businesses and get them in a user group and say, do you know what this means? Do you want this? Would you buy this? Are you excited? Are you not? Rather than what a lot of us marketers do, I will speak for the group this time, and now I'm going to be mean to us. We talk amongst ourselves and only get feedback from ourselves, but these products aren't for us.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Aaron. I'm tempted to keep on asking questions, but we've got about 3 or 4 minutes left here, and we've got to get right to Joe and Lexi. So, Joe, what are your thoughts on this particular agency website?
I mean, you can pretty much copy and paste everything that everyone else has said. Yeah, I thought that what Amy said about the contact form was very true. It's confusing to know if they only stick with the local areas that they're not, or is it something that anybody can use, especially when I see email addresses as just hello at customerswhostick.com. So it's not even the same name as the agency. So that's kind of confusing too. I'm not really sure who I'm going to get when I contact. Is it the actual agency or someone else? Just a few other things I noticed. Some of the tagline on the bottom actually confused me. Maybe I'm just a dumb one here. If new customers start here, will they find you? I wasn't even looking at the hand holding the Google phone at all. I was like, here, meaning the website? Are they saying if I land on the Flypaper site, will they even find us? I was like, well, that can doesn't make your services sound the best. And then just on the homepage too, that the Embrace Your Inner Nerd, they're really promoting careers and applications, and it's mixed in with the Our Partners one. So I actually thought that was part of, I could see what the partners want, and then you landed on a careers page. So I mean, that to me, that's a lot of space for partners and careers. Even on my laptop, it takes up almost the whole screen right there, and it's not really pushing what they probably want, is to really try to get more leads and customers for their own agency. So other than that, that's all he really wanted to add, and pretty much what Aaron and Amy said already was exactly what I was thinking.
And what about yourself, Lexi? What's 1 or 2 key things that you would advise this agency website to add or to change?
So one of the things that occurred to me, and I'm really guilty here, let me just throw that out. I agree with everything everyone said. I have been running Shift 6 for 3.5 years, and we don't have a website. And partly because we've been too busy, and partly because it's really hard to do. And when we don't have a website, all the leads that come to us have come to us because they know they want something they know we do, and we do it in a different way. Trying to articulate that on a website is hard. And I've often thought there's one thing to get leads, but you want the right leads. So, it was Joe that said it, you want leads and customers. Actually, you just want customers, right? Customers would be just fine. I'm not saying leads is a bad thing, but who are you? Like, who is a good fit for you? Because it's one thing to say, we spend a lot of time telling people, well, we're a good fit for them. But it's actually a lot easier if we've already pre-said, this is the type of client that we work really well with. And then you're kind of allowing someone to be like, yeah, that's us. And you can be a little bit wider with it. But I have a lot of sympathy. You don't want to look too different. You're following industry standards. But I think having a bit more personality builds trust. And don't be afraid to say who you know are your rock star clients. They're people who really like chocolate cake and cookies on Friday afternoon. Like, if that's it, that's fine. But there will be people that make good, better, and best customers. And I'm a big believer in making sure that's clear.
Wonderful. I'm tempted to dive in further and just keep the conversation going, but I think that's just about all the time we've got for this particular session. It's been a wonderful session, a lot of incredible thoughts. I'm sure I'll be watching it back, certainly. Lexi, thank you so much for joining us. Where can the audience find out more about you?
LexiMills.net or LinkedIn. Shift6.org is under construction, but honestly, Twitter is also fine. Any modern app.
Thanks again. And Joe, where can the viewer find out more about you?
Mainly hang out on Twitter, Milwaukee PPC. LinkedIn is Joe Martinez PPC. And you can also find me in the Marketing Now book in chapter 9.
There we go.
What I did there? You're welcome.
I do indeed. The checks in the post. And Aaron, thank you so much for joining us as well. Where can people find out more about you?
You too can find out about me in the Marketing Now book. I was going to steal Joe's idea. No, but you can find me at the beginning of your phone book. If you accidentally call someone, it's probably me. My Twitter handle is big A, little a. Get it? Like my name, it's a big A and then little a. But I'm at Tenuity. I'm based in Philadelphia, but we're kind of peppered all over the U.S. and we have one person in the U.K. So I'm all over the place, much like Lexi. You can sort of find me anywhere digitally. I'm pretty easy to find.
Absolutely wonderful. Well, thank you again, guys. Great session, and I'm going to go to the green room for the final session. So I'm going to be leaving you. Just a word of warning: if you stay there for a bit, you're still going to be live to the existing audience until I pull them to the final session. So I will say goodbye to you now, and thanks again. And to the audience, I'll say just hang about there for 2 minutes or so, and we will go to the final session.